The last thing you want is for something to go wrong with your plumbing, but it happens a lot. And the last thing you want when there's water spraying all over your kitchen or your toilet is overflowing is looking up reviews on which plumber you should call. So let me save you some time. Call the Art of Plumbing. They're always on time. They can locate the problem and fix it right away. They even help with solutions to stop any future problems. Save time. Call the Art of Plumbing today. 541-951-9405.
Hey, come take a walk with me. Not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I'm your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to sit with our guest today. Let me introduce you to him. He is a father of two. One of his children is named Jordan, and we're going to get into that momentarily. He's been married to an amazing woman since the year 2009. Pretty amazing there. But help me welcome him in today. He is also the head coach at Eagle Point High School. It is his first time in a head coaching role, and we're going to dig deep into his coaching philosophy, why he got involved. So help me welcome him in today, head coach of Eagle Point basketball, Ryan Mars. How are you, sir? How does that sound, first off?
I've been dreaming to hear that for a very long time.
I know you have.
Yeah, it's been a lifelong dream to take over a basketball program
Yep.
at a high school. So
yeah, that's fun, right? To
Yep.
hear that actually maybe in an on-air situation, maybe down the road. So there we go. So Ryan is in studio with us today. He is in the Carolina room. Now I got to ask you, your son's name is what?
Jordan.
And where do you get Jordan from? I mean, I have ideas, but squash those or confirm those for me.
He was named after the greatest basketball
There
player
it
ever
is.
to live or play, Michael Jordan.
There it is. Okay, just checking. All right, so that's some fun stuff, just to get some fun stuff out of the way. But Ryan is a really good friend of mine, and when I started talking about this season of what happened when, a lot of people start jumping into my mind, and Ryan, you start creeping up this list that I have of people that I want to sit with, people that I want to hear their story, people that I want to get to know them on a deeper level, right? And so the whole idea of the podcast really is getting in other people's shoes. So here's a fun question for you. Being a basketball guy, I don't know if you're a shoe nut like I am. I mean, clearly you can see there's a few of them. There's some other Jordans down there, courtesy of our good friend Lucas. But what size shoes do you wear? Can we have that question? maybe
Well, it
answered?
actually depends on the brand. So if I'm wearing Jordans, it's a 10.
It is a 10.
Anything else, it's 11.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Jordans, they fit weird, right?
They do.
Because I wear a 10.5 normally. Like most of those are 10.5s. And my foot is like right at the end on Air Jordans.
Yeah, they have to be just right. You have
Yeah.
to try on many pairs just to get the right fit.
Yeah. Okay. So what style of shoe do you like to wear? Being a basketball guy, I would imagine it's like a basketball sneaker of some sort, maybe?
Yeah, I love high tops and low tops, basketball sneakers, and it has to be the Jordan brand.
It has to be the Jordan.
It has
brand.
to be.
Okay. We're not getting any money from Jumpman yet, but
No.
I have aspirations maybe of one day that happening. So Ryan, getting into your what happened when you gave us a specific date of July 17th, 2009. Why that date, and what comes to mind when you think back to that date?
Well, I actually prayed a lot about what date I would be talking about, and a lot of different dates popped into my head, but I kept coming back to July 17th, 2009. And that is actually the date that I married my beautiful wife, Heather Mars.
And so that date brings a bell to you. Why, though? I mean, everyone has, that significant wedding date. Well, they should. If they're in a relationship, that should be the day, right, that they think about, that they love, that they appreciate, that they honor, right? But is there another reason why, maybe?
The biggest reason why is because she is by far the only woman that I ever had feelings of love for. And if anybody knows anything about my past, I was a really bad dude growing up. In high school a little bit, and then all throughout college, just a lot of bad choices, heavy with alcohol, drugs, and lost a lot of friends, trust, and respect from many people in my lives. And Heather was always the constant. Her and I met freshman year in college, And it's pretty weird how we met. I don't want to go into those details, but from day one, we just connected. There was always this strong connection between her and I, and she was there through all the messy stuff as I went through college. She never left my side. She was always there. She was my best friend, which is weird to say because I never had any girls that were friends of mine. I always treated them like objects growing up, but with her it was different, and that relationship just became so strong. And once college was over, she was the only one that I could truly say that was there through me thick and thin, and she helped me graduate college. I mean, I would have never gotten that diploma if it wasn't for her. And she decided to move down to Medford after college, about a year after, and we started living together, and the relationship just grew, and something came over me, and I just knew that was the woman that I needed to have the rest of my life. And in a million years, I never thought she would have said yes when I proposed, but she did. And we got married on that date, and my life has been forever changed because of her. And the other big thing that sticks out with just talking about her is I think she's the very first person in my life that introduced me to God. And it wasn't through her talking to me about him or anything. It was through her actions, the love and forgiveness that she would show me every single day. And she really started blazing that path for me to find Jesus over time.
Wow. Where'd you guys go to school at?
We went to the University of Oregon. She's originally from Salem. I'm originally from Medford, but we met in the dorm complex during our freshman year there.
So you both are Ducks.
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'm gonna move on from that. I don't want to talk about the Final Four, how you guys couldn't rebound in that Carolina game. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about how we beat you by 1, I think, in the Final Four. Okay,
I was torn anyways. I'm a Tar Heel fan too, so.
Yeah, who do you root for in that game?
I rooted for the Tar Heels. I hate to say it, but I did. It's always been my team.
Yeah. So Gary, you know our friend Gary.
Yes.
So for those that don't know, Gary Williamson is a good friend of ours, and Gary is a Duck fan, true and true. I don't think he went to the University of Oregon as far as I know, but we were actually down in California when the Final Four is going on. So he has this Duck sweatshirt on, and I, of course, have my Carolina stuff on. And we were at this conference, this youth conference, and people kept coming up to us going, "Hey, who do you think's going to win, Carolina, Oregon?" And I was like, "Oh, Carolina all the way." And people are like, "Oh, man, where are you from there?" And Gary's like, "No, he's from Oregon." So then he would start telling people, he would say, "Ask him where he's from." Anytime somebody would bring up Carolina to me, "Ask him where he's from." And I was like, "Well, Gary, yes, I live in Oregon, but my heart is in Carolina."
Yep.
So anyway, so that's fun stuff. So that's awesome that you guys met. You guys, start this relationship. It blossoms into marriage, which is amazing. She kind of, in a sense, leads you maybe to Jesus, in your own words. That's pretty crazy that happens, because there are so many women that I've met through the years that their husbands don't believe. They're a believer, but their husband never ends up coming to that saving, relationship in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And that's cool that she was able to do that for you. That really is a great story to that. So you mentioned the past.
Yes.
That it was messy, that it was a lot of poor choices, probably your own words there, or maybe I'm inserting words there. What led you down those roads before you got to Heather and her leading you to Jesus?
Well, it's hard to pin it on one thing. Growing up, my house wasn't always the best. I mean, my parents provided for me and everything, and created, I thought, a pretty good foundation. However, just watching how their marriage went, and then also my dad's choices that he made, it kind of influences a person. And then just not knowing who I was growing up, I was constantly trying to find myself, and thinking that I need to be the guy that was the life of the party, or have a little bit of rebellious streak or whatever. I thought that's how I could fit in with people. And from there, it got real easy for me to be sneaky and, to the outside world portray an image. But deep down inside, I got issues, and I'm doing things I know are wrong, but I didn't care at that time. And, by the time I got to college, it just gets magnified even more, and you're so deep in your bad habits, it's hard to break. And, by the time I got to college, I just didn't care. I just wanted to party. And, my drinking got worse, started experimenting with drugs, and those things became habits as well. But like I said earlier, Heather was right there with me through it all. I mean, she was a friend and at that time, and she knew what I was doing, but she never thought of me any differently. She never, disowned me if I did something stupid or if I got arrested or I was passed out in my puke or whatever. I mean, she was just always there. And even having a good friend like that doesn't necessarily want to make you change. That's got to happen within. And, at that time, I just didn't care. I didn't think anything wrong of it. But, the more and more I spent time with her, over time, I just started to learn and change some ways. And some of those changes I made were because of her. I wanted to have more respect from her, or I wanted to look better for her. But I know deep down inside she didn't really care. I mean, she loved me for who I was, but she was just a great influence.
So do you think that choices that you made, the poor choices, the drinking, the drugs, the things like that, do you think that compelled you to maybe really set your mind at trying to help other people get out of those situations? Because I know you're very passionate. Not only are you a head coach now, but prior to you being a head coach, I know this about you, that you really have a passion for young people and seeing them not only come to know Jesus, but really be an influencer in helping them make those decisions.
Well, what's weird is I actually was really involved with helping kids right out of high school. I mean, even for my senior project in high school, I coached a YMCA boys basketball team that were like third and fourth graders. But I always had that strong passion to help kids and work with kids. But I never took the time to step back and look at the choices that I was making, behind closed doors, and then what I was putting out there for the world to see, and how that could be detrimental actually to working with youth. And so just as I was getting older and starting to wise up and going through some real tough consequences, it made me really take a hard look at that. What kind of role model do I want to be for these kids? Do I want to be a hypocrite? I'm telling them not to, do certain things, stay away from drugs. And here I am, polluting my body with all sorts of things as a young person. And it just really makes you stop and think, you got to be a good role model when you're in that world. And but I've always had that passion working with kids. And I know the way that I grew up and the choices that I made, when I started feeling like my own man, I knew that over time kids would relate to that, because a lot of kids I would meet, they'd tell me about their home experience. They'd tell me about, how they hang out with their friends, stuff they get into. And, I had a similar past, and I knew that if I shared and was an open book to them, I think I always saw it helping with the connection that I would form with those kids, and they could relate to me and know that I wasn't just some old dude trying to collect a paycheck. They knew that I actually cared, and I do care. I care about those kids an awful lot. So,
do you think God allowed you to have a son to give you maybe more empathy and more understanding for yours and his relationship at all? Have you ever thought about that?
I have thought about why God blessed me with a son, not particularly in the way that you phrased it just now, but what I've stopped and thought about and prayed about actually is, is this God's way of giving me an opportunity to show a young person who's a male who he is, because I didn't have that kind of upbringing as a young boy from my father, and I'm not trying to bash my dad by any means. He's a great dude and all that, great dad. But he didn't know the Lord back when I was a kid, and I didn't have any grown men teaching me about Jesus growing up, except for one guy at the high school. His name's Mr. Dixon, old basketball coach of mine as well. But I really do believe God gave me a son so that I would have an opportunity to show him the way and introduce him to Jesus and just claim victory for God again, And I've had to take a step back many times raising him, and kind of check myself and what I do and my mannerisms that I have and what comes out of my mouth. And because I don't want him to have the same experience that I had growing up. And I want him to know what a godly man is, not just what the world wants out of a man. It's a whole different set of standards. And I can only pray that God's helping me out each and every day to show that to him.
Going on that same kind of track, what does coaching mean to you, and why on earth would you want to get involved in coaching and be a part of that?
Well, back in the past, like in my early 20s, mid 20s, even my late 20s, really, coaching was, it was an opportunity to pour into kids, but I also saw it as, self-serving in a sense because, I would get glory from it, and it'd make me feel special, and that's for the wrong reasons, really. And as I started to find Jesus and then get saved and start maturing in Him, it's a whole different ballgame now. It's my opportunity that God's given me to hopefully lead young people to Him, and I don't try to force it upon them by any means, but it's a gateway for me to just show them my mannerisms, share my life with them, and hopefully they see that light. And, if they have questions, I'm right there to answer those questions. But I see it as a ministry that God's given me, and I'm very respectful of that. But coaching means the world to me because I'm just so humbled that I have that privilege to take care of other people's kids for a moment of time and just show them a good example of what a godly man is. And I fall short sometimes. I'm not perfect by any means, but I take great pride in knowing that that's a big responsibility. And I just pray to God that He continues to give me that wisdom and gives me the strength to do the best that I can for those boys.
Now, for me, there's some great coaches that I know of. I don't know them personally, but watch them through the years. I think of a guy like Phil Jackson, coached the Bulls, the Lakers. And I think of a guy like Dean Smith, Roy Williams. I think there's another guy right close to Roy Williams. I just can't remember his name offhand. They're like 8 miles away from North Carolina. He has a really weird name to pronounce. I'm not even going to say his name because I don't even know how to say it. I'm kidding, of course. But there's that guy that I'm not even going to say his name, but you know who I'm talking about.
He's like
right?
Voldemort, right?
Yeah, looks like Voldemort. Looks like a rat. But my point is even though I might not like him personally, he still is. I have to give him his props. He still is a good coach. I can't believe I just admitted that. But what have you learned from watching other coaches that you've now not only applied to your life in helping you grow and mature? Because I'm guessing as a coach, you kind of want to mentor and kind of want to not steal from per se, but mentor or follow after or, maybe mimic in some respects. Is there anybody that you can attribute to giving you the success that you've had so far?
There's a couple of guys that I can name. One being Dabo Swinney. He's not even a basketball coach. He's a football coach for Clemson. And just reading about him and watching him on the sidelines and hearing him in interviews, you can tell that he's a godly man. And, he ain't afraid to talk about it. He ain't afraid to show it. And, just in the little that I've learned about him and how he runs his program, it's always God first in what he's doing. And, then it's his family, and then it's his players. And I think that's a great way to run a program. You always got to put God first. And I think that's why he has such a successful program right now, because he doesn't deter from that. He sticks with it. Another guy that I watched very closely, and even from back when I was a kid, probably a lot of people out there won't respect my answer, but I was a big fan of Bob Knight. I know he's gotten a bad rap, for many different things, but just hearing his former players talk about him and the amount of respect and trust that he had from those guys and how much he poured into their lives, it was more than just what they were doing on the basketball court or in practice. He had a genuine interest in what was going on in their families, what was going on with school, what was going on in their social life. I mean, the dude just cared about his players as people. And, that's something I've always tried to hang my hat on in everybody that I've coached over the years is, basketball's great, and I would love for you to perform and get better and be a great asset to the team. But at the end of the day, your personal life, your family life, you as a human being, that's what's most important to me. And I want to help you achieve the most that you can achieve in becoming the best young man that you can become.
On that, what do you hope somebody leaves your program with? And I know it's kind of at the infant stages. I mean, you just became the head coach this last season, which hopefully we have a season because of COVID and all that other nonsense that's going on. But what do you hope by the end of the time that you get to spend with the player, and we'll just call him Johnny, what do you hope Johnny leaves with?
I hope that they leave with a high school diploma. I hope that they are a better young man than when I first met them and through the years that I coach them. meaning that they have good moral character. They care about their community and want to serve their community. They have respect for others. Even if respect is not given to them, they're still going to be respectful of others. That they have a lot of love and support for their family members and their friends. And for me, most importantly, is that they leave that program knowing that there is a trust between themselves and myself, and that they know that they got somebody for life that they can always call upon if they ever need help.
For life?
For life.
Like a lifetime guarantee?
Lifetime.
Why is that so important?
Because it's relationships. I care about these kids that I coach. I mean, like I said earlier, it's bigger than basketball for me. These are real relationships. The relationship for me is more important than anything else. And just, when I was talking about my past earlier, I didn't have very deep, authentic relationships with others. I mean, I had my family, but there were a lot of times I couldn't trust them to tell them the truth about stuff. And, I had friends I called best friends, but I couldn't trust them all the time. And just never really had that one guy that I could always open up to about anything. And I'm not trying to shortchange any of my players' parents or family members or whatnot. I just want to have that kind of relationship with them that, if they don't feel comfortable going to anybody else, they know that they can come to their coach and just could be completely honest about anything that's going on, but also know that they always have a guy in their life for their lifetime that will go to bat for them and help them out no matter what.
So I heard it said, and I think there's some evidence that speaks to this, but I heard it said the reason why Michael Jordan, in your words, and I would echo it, the greatest basketball player of all time, chose the University of North Carolina. One, for those that don't know, Jordan grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. So he's a North Carolina kid. But part of the reason why he chose Carolina was because of Dean Smith. Because his parents believed Dean Smith kind of picked up the baton where they left off. And I've heard even Roy Williams say, who's Carolina's current coach, because he was an assistant at the time that Jordan came there, which, by the way, Roy Williams found Michael Jordan. So that's pretty cool. But I say that because even Roy Williams has echoed this. He said, Jordan came to us, and Dean Smith talked to him, and Dean Smith pushed Michael Jordan to be the best that he could be. Now, he's saying that didn't just happen off the court, that it happened on the court, that it happened in every element of his life. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're saying there, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say I came up with that all by myself. That is something I did learn from following the North Carolina program as a kid. I knew that about Dean Smith. I knew that about Roy Williams as well when he took over the program many years ago. But that's kind of how I want to conduct and carry myself with this program that I'm blessed to run. I want to help these boys continue their progress and being the best man that they can be on and off the court.
So I want to go back to your date. I mean, because we could talk hoops probably.
Oh yeah,
all
we can
night
talk
long.
forever.
We could probably talk all night long. But what did you learn about yourself on your wedding day that maybe you didn't know beforehand?
I think the biggest thing I learned that I was capable of loving someone else 100% wholeheartedly, no strings attached. And I also learned that I can be loved in the same fashion. I have failed many times as a husband. Our marriage has not been perfect. We didn't even have a godly marriage for the first 6-7 years of it. But on my wedding day and shortly after we, said our vows and whatnot, I just knew that there was someone out there for me that loved me for who I was, no matter what. And, she was going to forgive me when I'd screw up, and she was going to be there for the triumphs. And then I could do the same for her. And again, I've fallen short many times as a husband trying to do that for her. But that was the biggest thing I walked away after we said our I do's. So
that's some would say, man, that's like a Hallmark movie. The PG.
Not trying to be corny. That's just how I feel.
The PG-13 version, maybe, of that. Because, Hallmark movies most of the time are like G, they start out real sappy and real, whatever. You've probably seen a few of those Hallmark movies?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Ryan's admitting he's got tats all over the place. I don't know what that means, but that just kind of gives you the kind of guy, a rough guy, but he still says, hey, Hallmark movies, it's where it's at. So Ryan, I'd love to ask this question. What is one thing that you are absolutely certain about
that Jesus is real, he's risen, and that salvation is waiting for me when my time is up. And to go along with that the victor's already won, and I don't need to worry or stress out about all the junk that's going on out there in the world. Jesus has got it. So
that's awesome, man. I love that, because I never know what people are going to or how they're going to interpret that. Most people have answered it that way, but yeah. So would there be anything about your wedding day that you wish you could go back and change?
I wish I didn't drink as much. No, I'm joking. I think I would have spent more time just taking in the moment. I got caught up with all my buddies being around there and just trying to have a good time and socialize with them. But, I mean, for the most part, the wedding day was awesome, but not a lot of things I can, vividly recall in my head looking back at it, other than, how amazing my wife looked and just being up there and going through our vows and making it official. But, yeah, that's kind of what sticks out.
Heather's the consistent for you. She's the rock. She's the concrete. She's holding you in place. What advice would you give to husbands who are coaches to help them understand and what they maybe need to do to help their wife understand the passion and the pursuit that they're now engaging in? Well,
coaching basketball has been a sore spot in our marriage in the past, but once and it was a sore spot because I didn't include her in on that, and this time around for the last few years, I've really grown in that area and made her a part of that, and realized that she has to come first no matter what. Doesn't matter how important something may be for basketball, or if there's a game coming up or whatever. If her and I aren't good, then I'm not going to be good for my players. I'm not going to be good for the game. I'm not going to be good for practice. So the biggest thing that I had to do was to put her first, and then also include her in on what I'm doing with basketball, and have her be a part of that process. So with all the new responsibility that's come my way, I communicate with her on when I want to set times, or when I want to set dates for practices or scrimmages. I have to run everything by her, and it's not because she's telling me to do that. It's because of what we have learned over the years in our marriage with basketball being a part of our life. And for any future coaches out there, and if you're married, you got to remember that you got an unhappy wife, basketball is going to be unhappy for you as well. You need your partner to be supportive of what you're doing, and if they're not, then you need to look at your marriage and see what you need to do differently, because having a healthy marriage is more important than your win-loss record for a basketball program. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned in all that. And I can honestly say that my wife is very supportive with the new gig that I've received. And, there's still some bumps in the road here and there. I might miss something to talk to her about or whatever. But she's all in. I have her support, and I feel very thankful and happy that she is supportive of it. And I've looked for many ways to include her and the kids and make our family part of the basketball family, and vice versa. And so far, it's going pretty well. And I just got to stick to that map that we've laid out together.
I could almost make a parallel line between coaching and any career, really, right? Because if you're going to do any kind of, added passion, or find that passion lane that you're in, whether it be your job, whether it be, coaching is your job, but you know what I mean? Like if it's a hobby, if it's a, if it's a job, if it's a whatever, you got to really make sure you're on the same page with your spouse. Because if you're not, what do you think would happen in your mind?
Might be a cold night out on the couch. No, it's just going to cause friction. And especially if you have kids as well, kids are going to feed off of that too. So, again, my wife and I, we ain't perfect, and, there's still some bumps and things that we have to navigate from time to time. And when I don't do my part communicating with her, there's friction between us. But we've gotten to a place where we can resolve that pretty quickly, because we know how important our marriage is. And, I respect my wife's feelings and emotions, and she does with me. And, but yeah, if you're not communicating what's going on, there's going to be some trouble there in the marriage.
For sure, yeah. Being married 19 years, we've had our fair share of challenges as well. So yeah, I can definitely raise my hand to that. So Ryan, getting back into coaching and mentoring, because really that's a lot of what you've done to kind of prepare to take these steps that you're in now. What has been the greatest challenge that you've had to overcome in coaching and even in mentoring young men?
I would have to say patience. I'm not always the most patient person, and I've worked other jobs where I was a drug and alcohol counselor for kids. I was a case manager for kids living in a shelter, and I've always worked with teenagers just from real rough backgrounds and very rough current situations that they're in, and I've had this tendency at times where I can get tunnel vision and be so focused on trying to help them change whatever it is, and sometimes lose that patience because it's not happening when I want it to happen. And same with coaching. Like I've had this lifelong dream to be a head varsity coach, and I've didn't have my first experience being part of a varsity coaching staff up until about 4 or 5 years ago when Coach Mack brought me on there at the high school. And shout out to him. He's an amazing man. But just being patient in wanting it to happen. Like I was frustrated with not having opportunities. About 2.5 years ago when the job came open, I was really hoping that I'd get it. Didn't happen. And my impatience, played some tricks with me. And, but yeah, patience has always been the thing, and just not being patient enough with players developing sometimes. So it's always been a work in progress. I'm aware of the issue that I have. I constantly work on it, and, I feel like over the years I've gotten much better, but it can still creep in and play some tricks on my mind. But that's always been the biggest obstacle, I feel.
Patience is a tough one, right?
Oh, it's super hard.
Okay, so what's better right now, your patience level or your jump shot?
My patience level.
Okay.
I've lost the jump shot.
That was just some levity there. I've never seen his jump shot. I think mine's better than yours.
No, I'm still a deadly shooter, just not as deadly as I used to be.
I couldn't shoot to save my life. I'm glad salvation does not rest on my jump shot. I would be in trouble. But I hear you say that because I think patience one is a virtue. I've heard that, but I've also I think. I love what you're saying as far as, you have to really be mindful of it. You have to almost be on guard, right?
Yes.
What happens if you were to let that guard down? Like you said, you again start to walk in your own strength. You get to start, you obviously become probably not a gym to be around, I would imagine. People probably don't want to be around somebody that's impatient. I mean, my hand's been up a few times. I'm very impatient at times. But for you, would you say patience is a key element to being a great player and even post basketball?
Yeah, I would say it's a key element. I mean, it's one of several that you need to have to be successful, whether you're a coach or a player, or as a husband. But yeah, patience is a big thing. And one of the things I've learned about patience, and now that I know who the Lord is, it's all in God's timing, anyways, and you can't rush God. God knows what needs to happen when it needs to happen. And, I look back at 2.5 years ago when I tried for the job the first time around. At first I was a little upset and disappointed in myself that it didn't happen like I thought it was going to happen. And, but when I talked to God about it and prayed about it, what I learned from him is I wasn't ready. And, there were still things that he needed to grow me in. And one of that being, constantly putting my family first over basketball. He also needed to grow me in leadership. He needed to grow me in organization and, several other things, but it was all in his timing. And, this last time around, 6-7 months ago, when the job came open again, I think God had me where he wanted me and that I made those changes that he wanted me to make. And I think that's why all this happened. So, and I had to stay patient, in the last 2.5 years and continue to talk to God. And it wasn't me praying for the job. It was praying to God, where do you want me to serve? Where do you want me next? How can I help build your kingdom? And I think that's why this door opened.
So you always dreamed of being a varsity basketball head coach?
Always.
Why that? I mean, like, I'm thinking most people dream of being a doctor. Most people dream of being maybe the president. I mean, I don't know anybody that would want that job right now. Just saying. But I'm curious, like, of all the jobs to take or all the jobs to, consider, you're like, man, varsity basketball head coach, that's what I want to do.
Well, I realized after sixth grade that I wasn't going to make it to the NBA. I just knew it. Kind of accepted that, and I knew I had a sharp basketball mind. I knew that I loved basketball. Basketball was always my outlet for anything. When things were hard at home, or I had a rough day at school, or kids were picking on me or whatever, I could always go to basketball. It was always a safety net for me, and I think my dad also kind of helped shape that dream too, because I watched him and how he would give kids rides home after practice whose parents didn't show up, or, we would have, guys that, when we take them home that parents weren't home, and so we'd bring them over to our house and feed them dinner and stuff, and just to see how my dad poured into kids, like, it just gave me so much respect for what he did. And then by the time I got into high school, all the coaches that I had there for basketball, just great guys. And I just always said to myself, man, when I get older, this is what I want to do. I want to have this opportunity to be a part of something with the game that I love, and then also have this opportunity to pour into young people over and over and over.
Okay, so let's play this game called Hypothetical, right?
Uh-oh.
This could be dangerous. So we're friends, so hopefully
right.
I can go down a road that we maybe necessarily haven't okayed or approved.
Okay.
So here we go. Extra grace in our friendship being tested here. If Heather doesn't come along, are you coaching, and are you where you are right now?
No. If I don't have her, then it ain't worth doing. I wish I could elaborate on that more, but my wife's the most important thing to me other than Jesus. So I got to have her support. I got to have her, being my biggest cheerleader. And if she's not on board with it and she doesn't support it, then I ain't going to do it.
Well, I'm even thinking of choices that you've made, right? Looking back, as you said, you weren't the upstanding, role model that you are trying to be right now. Not trying to be, that you are. I shouldn't say, but maybe we are always trying to be a better person, I would imagine, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I guess what I'm asking is if she doesn't come along, kind of get in your face, so to speak, not in a anger fashion or a, get your act together kind of thing, but if she doesn't come along and kind of point you in a path to say, Ryan, there's a better way, are you where you are right now?
Oh no, I'd probably be one of those guys that I used to help when I was a drug and alcohol counselor. I mean, I'd probably be in and out of jail. I'd be probably addicted to something or multiple things. I just wouldn't be a really good dude. My wife's had a huge influence, all the way back when. And I've fallen short many, many times, and I never became perfect. When when her and I's relationship grew, there were still some bad things I did as a husband even. And, but I think that if she never entered the picture, or we never developed what we developed, I'd be a completely different guy on a completely different path, and it would just be a rough life.
All right. So one last coaching question. What do you think the greatest challenge coaches are facing today? I mean, obviously we could take COVID out the table. I mean, we know that that's obviously going to be a challenge. We know that. But as far as being relatable, as far as getting them to buy in, because let's face it, our kids today, probably more than any other generation, everything on the planet is fighting for their time, their attention, their energy, their effort, everything's grabbing at them. So how do you break through and become that voice to say, no, not only there's a better way, but how do you break through those barriers or those distractions to get them to buy into what you're trying to teach them? Not only as men, as you said, you're trying to teach them post-basketball, but even during basketball. How do you do that?
Well, I think that's something I'm still learning. I mean, I don't really have a straight answer for you on that. I consider myself young, and this is going to be my first opportunity to be a head of a program from top to bottom. And so, I don't have a clear-cut answer for you on that. What I can say is, some of the hardest things to work through as a coach right now in this day and age is just understanding where these kids are coming from and who they are as people, because their generation is much different than the generation I grew up with and then the generation that I learned about from my parents. And so just trying to navigate that. And then also, hard work. I'm not saying all kids are immune to hard work or anything like that, but I do notice that there are more times than not where doing the extra stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, the little things that make you better or make the program better as a team, the interest to do that sometimes is not always there. We live in a day and age where, the stuff that gets shown on SportsCenter or, on all these internet sites or whatever, it's always the highlights. And when that's all you're looking at, you're not watching a whole game through, or you see what's going on behind the scenes at practice or whatnot, it's really easy to get caught up in thinking that you can just step on the court and be successful right from the tip. But there's so many things that you got to do to prepare yourself before you even get to that point. And right now that's something I'm trying to teach the young boys that I get to coach, and just trying to instill that into them and making that a value that they care about, that doing the little things, doing the uncomfortable things, and grinding your nose on doing that stuff, it's going to have a huge payoff at the end if you stick with it.
I've heard it said too, and that, by the way, that was a phenomenal answer. I've heard it said, now I know most high school teams, at least in our area, don't have their last name on the back of their jersey, but I've seen, like most colleges, the last name of the player is on the back of their jersey. And one of my favorite coaches, Roy Williams, says it's not the last name, it's not the back of the name that matters, it's the front of the name that matters. The front being, that's where generally the school name is. Would you subscribe to that and maybe speak to that, and why do you think that's more important?
To be honest with you, I could care less either way. I mean, being out in this community, though, I think with everything that we've had to go through within the sports, with the recent fires and stuff, I think it's very important that, it says Eagles or Eagle Point on the front of that jersey, and I think it should mean something to all our athletes at the high school when they put that on. But at the end of the day, I think what really matters is the person that's putting on that uniform to begin with. What kind of person are we growing that person to be? What things are we teaching them? What kind of skills, what kind of values, what kind of morals are we trying to give that person? And, once they put that jersey on, their character on and off the court, that's what I think matters most. Not the name on the jersey or the name on the back of the jersey. It's who's wearing it, and what have we done as a coaching staff? What have we done as a community to help that young person be the best person that they can be?
All right, last question, then we're going to play a game together. Because as a coach and a basketball coach, I know you love games, right? It's game time, right, Coach?
Yeah, if it's trivia,
all right.
I don't want to look stupid.
Yeah, you won't look stupid, I promise, and it's not trivia. So I know you're just in, as I said, you're just kind of in the infant stages of really being the head coach, overseeing this program, as you've said. But I'm wondering, we're going to fast forward 10 years from now. What do you want to be said about Ryan Mars, the basketball coach?
Well, I don't really want people talking to me or talking about me as just one individual. But if that's the question you're going to ask, I would like people to say 10 years from now that, that guy gave everything he had to invest in those kids, taught them everything that he knew, and wasn't afraid to have the tough conversations, to have, complete honesty and trust with those boys, respect. But yeah, he just gave it everything that he had to just help them become better men.
I think that's a good answer.
Thanks.
No, I do. I think that's a great answer because, who's to say what's going to happen 10 years from now? None of us know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day. But I love the fact that you're still trying to instill in them that it's not about you.
No, it's not. Not about me at all.
It's about the legacy and the lessons that you're teaching them. You want that to speak more volumes than your name or your name being in the marquee or your name being in the paper. You want it to be about them and the legacy that you've left them. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so Ryan, here is a magical cup. It's awesome. It is, in fact, our world-famous North Carolina Cup. So it is time to play our favorite game that I love to call Senseless. Now, Ryan, you are aware that there are, in fact, 5 senses, right? You're fully aware of that?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. That was not the question. So you're going to roll it. You can roll it right here on this table, and then based on what you roll, I'm going to ask you this final question, okay?
Got it.
All right, so he's going to roll, see what he gets. Can't believe it. He got a number 3. I love it. All right, so number 3. Oh, this is perfect because you're a basketball coach. So this I love it when it fits together so nicely. So Ryan, what is the greatest thing you've ever smelled?
Not to sound dirty, but it would probably be my wife's hair after she's gotten out of the shower. It just smells so wonderful.
That's not dirty, buddy. That's like, I told you, that's like Hallmark almost.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there a certain can you describe the smell to us, or are you too afraid to
I'll just use the word I use all the time. I call it foofy. Smells foofy.
Smells foofy.
Foofy.
All right, gotcha. So Ryan, I'm going to give you a final thought, and
right.
the final thought can be really anything you want to say. But if you were to leave us with something, inspire us from a coaching standpoint, or a husband standpoint, whichever hat you want to put on right now. But imagine we're down at halftime. The game's close. Maybe we're only down by like 3. But what is your speech to us to get us motivated, to get us maybe back into the game?
It's time to buck up and work together as a team. Go out there and get it.
That was it?
That was it, but I would say it more passionately. That's all. My boys know me. I know them. I know that's all they need to hear.
Right. And so the same could be true for a husband, right? If
Yes.
he's been down and he's maybe not treated his wife with the Hallmark respect and the foofy loving that he needs to have, you would tell him the same thing, right?
Yep, buck up.
I love it. All right. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for coming on today. I do appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you having me.
I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Again,
I appreciate that.
I'm so excited to see not only what you're going to do, but as your friend, to see you finally get to something that you're really passionate about.
I appreciate that.
Because I think when we find that passion lane, really the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to the ceiling is the roof. That's what it was.
There you go.
The ceiling is the roof. That's what it was. So guys, I just want to close with this thought. Like, what is your passion lane? What is that place that you need to go into to find your place that you can go and be the best you can be? You heard today from a very good friend of mine, Ryan. He's found that. The question is, have you found that? And if you haven't, why not? So let that just kind of sit on the table for just a second. Just think about that. Why haven't you found it? Have you really been looking for it? And then the second part to that, as I would add in, is do you have that cheerleader? Not that Heather's a cheerleader by any means, but I don't know. Maybe she was in her past life. I don't know.
She was actually.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. But have you found that cheerleader in your life that is going to spur you on to greater things? Because Ryan's found his again. And again, I'm not saying Ryan is the perfect example of this.
By no means.
But what I do respect about him and I really value in him is the fact that he has not allowed his no to stay a no. That he has found a way to say, you know what, I'm going to be patient in it. I'm going to look for my yes. And when I find that yes, I'm going to run full force into that. So guys, let that be your challenge today. Just want to remind you of this. Of course, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Want to thank you so much for listening today, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes. Thank you so much for joining us on Other People's Shoes today. As you know, I'm your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you again for joining us. Want to thank our guest, Ryan Mars, so much, guys. I don't know about you, but when I heard about him talking about his coaching philosophy and finding that lane and finding that passion area for him, I started to get a little goosebumps. I don't know about you, but I just love that kind of stuff. I love it when people find where their calling is or where their passion lane, and they're running right towards that. So I don't know about you, but that was just really exciting, and that was a major takeaway for me. What was your takeaway? Will you let us know? Will you send us an email? You can do so at opspodcast.com. Straight from there, you can hit our connections page. You can just drop us a little note there. Tell us what your passion lane is. We, of course, would love to hear from you on that. And in fact, if we use your comment on air, we will send you out a little free gift courtesy of Other People's Shoes. Speaking of a gift, I have a gift for you. Next week, I know it's Thanksgiving week, but we are celebrating. Again, we love to celebrate. Hopefully you do as well. Join us next week. And in fact, here's a little sneak preview of next week's episode.
Well, I'd have to say Vietnam was probably the scariest because I didn't know what the hell I was doing then because I was young.
How old were you?
20.
Yeah. What was your job there? Your duty, if you will?
I was an engineer. My first duty there was to go out and sweep a road with a mine detector.
Is that scary?
Yeah, especially when they set off a bomb up the road and killed some people. Combat's always scary.
Yeah. That is right. Our show is celebrating 100 episodes. I'm going to let that sit on the table for a second. Do you hear the joy in my voice in that? I hope so. Listen up. We are turning 100 as far as episodes go, and what a better way to celebrate that than to sit down with our next guest. I'm just going to give you a hint. It's somebody that was on my unicorn list. Now, if you're not familiar with my unicorn list, indulge me for a quick second. A unicorn list is this list I created when I started the show of people I wanted to get on. This person was our number one person. So join us back here next week. Wednesday, that will take place. If you're not sure where to listen, of course, go to opspodcast.com. That, of course, is a great place to listen each and every week. Right at the top of our page, you can play it right from there. And, of course, if you'd like to subscribe in your favorite podcast platform of choice, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all those fun places to go. Eternity Radio, we're there as well. Listen there and, of course, subscribe there. And, of course, each and every week, it'll come right to your phone or right to your device of choice. So just want to call your attention to that. And stay tuned again till next week, celebrating 100. Pretty pumped about that if you couldn't tell already. Remember, guys, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening each and every week. And stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.